Sometimes I get excited when I tell a story, and maybe I exaggerate just a little bit. Like Ryan may say things to me like, really, 25,000 emails? That's a lot. Or, oh, I didn't realize we had spiders that big here in Kansas. Maybe that's the kind of conversation some of you want to have with the writer of Luke's Gospel. Right? You trace Jesus' genealogy all the way back to Adam? Or Jesus was praised by everyone, and then they all tried to push him off a cliff? Or they hauled in so many fish that the boats were about to sink? That's an awful lot of fish. In our narrative lectionary, we're just getting started in Luke's Gospel, and some of you may already be rolling your eyes at some of the exaggerations that Luke puts into the narrative. But honestly, this is one of my very favorite things about Luke's Gospel. It's one of the things that makes it my favorite Gospel, that and the fact that Luke's the only writer who mentions Joanna in any of his stories. But this story of the miraculous catch of fish, I love it, and it is amazing on so many levels. I mean, first you have these professional fishers who know this lake very well and haven't managed to catch any fish all night long. And then second is the fact I just learned this week that clear nylon netting wasn't invented until the 20th century, so the nets that were used in Jesus' time were linen, and the fish could see them during the day, which is why professionals always went net fishing at night. Nobody ever caught fish in nets in broad daylight because the fish could see the nets. And finally, of course, just the sheer number of fish that are caught, as if a full net or one full boat is not enough fish to demonstrate Jesus' miraculous powers. And it's worth noting that this ridiculous catch of fish is not the first miracle that Simon has seen Jesus perform. Just a few verses earlier, Jesus goes to Simon's house and casts out a fever from Simon's mother-in-law, who is immediately healed. And these stories about Simon's mother-in-law and then the miraculous catch of fish, these are only found in Luke's Gospel. The other three Gospels do have stories of Jesus calling the first disciples, but in John, most things are different in John, and his story doesn't even involve a boat. In Matthew and Mark, there is a boat, but there's no miraculous catch of fish. There aren't actually even any fish. So Matthew and Mark's story of Jesus calling the disciples focuses on Jesus' command to follow me and the disciples' obedience. The command and the obedience. And I'm struck by the fact that in Luke's version, even though my Bible labels this, Jesus calls the first disciples, really in this version, Jesus doesn't call the disciples. Jesus tells Simon, you will be catching people, but there's no point where Jesus tells or even asks Simon or his business partners to follow him. They just decide to do it. After Jesus performs this ridiculous, extravagant, unasked for miracle, Simon Peter and James and John, and we assume Andrew, even though he's not named here, they leave everything. The Bible says everything, and follow Jesus. They leave the boats, which are their business, their livelihood. They leave all of those fish that could have fed their families and made significant money if sold at market. They leave their nets, which they were so carefully cleaning when Jesus showed up, and now the nets are probably going to rot because they're just sitting there dirty, not hung out to dry. In Matthew and Mark, the disciples leaving is framed as obedience to Jesus' call, but here in Luke, the leaving is a spontaneous response to this extravagant miracle that Jesus has performed. This week I came across a beautiful article by plant ecologist Robin Wall Kimmerer. It's called The Serviceberry, An Economy of Abundance. And she contrasts our culture's practice of capitalism with what she calls a gift economy that she observes among plants. And in contemplating the gift of abundant berries, she writes that to name the world as gift is to feel one's membership in the web of reciprocity. It makes you happy and it makes you accountable. To contemplate abundance, to recognize gifts, and to feel true gratitude makes us happy and it makes us accountable. Surely this is what's happening with Simon and the others. They see the abundance of fish and they recognize the gift that Jesus is giving them, not just the gift of fish, but the gift of his presence with them, his attention to them, the connection to God that he offers them. And they feel true gratitude. They are happy and they are accountable, which is why they leave everything and follow him. Now, if I was preaching to a different group of people, I might emphasize here how our gratitude should make us accountable, right? How it calls us to care for the earth, to share with people in need, to work for justice. The accountability piece of this is important, to be sure. But you all are pretty accountable, responsible kinds of people. Mennonites in general, right, we're committed to discipleship, to doing all the things we're supposed to do as followers of Jesus. Now, that's not to say we manage to do all of the Jesus things all of the time, but we know we're supposed to be doing all of the Jesus things all of the time. So the part of Kimmerer's statement that I find myself clinging to, and the part I want to make sure you hear, is that recognizing God's gifts should make us happy. It is out of his amazement and his happiness that Simon chooses to follow Jesus. And it is out of our wonder and our happiness that we can choose to follow Jesus. God's economy is a gift economy. It's an economy of abundance, not scarcity, an economy of generosity, not hoarding, an economy of gracious reciprocity, not obligation. In discussing Luke's story of the miraculous catch of fish, biblical scholar Robert Williamson Jr. says that in leaving behind their boats and nets and fish, the disciples are choosing to participate in the economy of God's kingdom over the economy of empire. I mean, on the one hand, this is a difficult choice to make because the economy of empire pervades our lives and is designed to push us towards fear that there is not enough. But on the other hand, as Luke's beautiful and ridiculous story of an impossible catch of fish shows us, when we do truly contemplate God's abundance and allow ourselves to receive the divine gifts, to enter into true gratitude, we happily turn away from the economy of empire towards the economy of God's kingdom. And I could start in right now on a whole new sermon explaining what it means to participate in God's economy instead of the empire's economy, but maybe we'll get to that another time. Because the piece I really want you to carry away with you today is that following Jesus into God's economy makes us happy. It is not about sacrifices and shoulds. It's about leaving behind something that seems maybe pretty okay, but isn't quite right, for something that is so much more life-giving. It's about recognizing that we live amid abundance and wanting to share those gifts that we receive. Maybe Luke does exaggerate a little bit in describing how many fish the guys haul in that day. I don't know, I wasn't there to count the fish. But I will tell you that Luke is not exaggerating the generosity of God. Luke is not exaggerating the graciousness of Jesus' presence. Luke is not exaggerating the eagerness Simon and the others feel to be part of whatever crazy, beautiful thing God is doing through Jesus on this earth. I pray that we, like Simon, can receive the abundant gifts of God with gratitude and happiness and eagerness to join with God's generosity. Thanks be to God.